right?
Yep, QuickTime, new audio
Okay,
recording.
I don't cheat.
Jared, do I sound okay?
You sound
Like
good, yeah.
lately, I feel like I do this thing where I move my head a lot,
Yeah.
and so it affects the audio quality. And I'm like, how do I just get a box for my head when I'm on shows, and I
Right.
say just don't move? What do I
Yeah,
do?
that's the hard part. Because when you get back here, it gets real echoey.
Yeah,
And then you come
I'm
in,
gonna try. I'm gonna lean in.
So really just kind of like, relax and sit still if possible. Some people
That's
can't.
that's
Like, just,
super hard for me. Yeah.
we'll have to get like a microphone that connects to your lip or something, like right there. So like,
Like a mouth, you mean? A mouth. You're gonna get me a mouth.
well, you already have one of those. We're going to second mouth. All
I
right. So
was
we're
like,
live. We're still pre-show. I haven't hit record yet, so I should do that on my local. Oh shoot! In fact, what am I doing here?
and Sebastian, how old is Docusaurus? Because
Um, I think it started maybe 6 years ago, something like that. I'm not sure exactly
six.
the date because it was internal to Facebook at this time, but I think yeah, maybe six.
And how
Okay,
long have
and
you
but
been
like,
involved?
yeah.
Hmm?
Have you been involved that entire time, or you weren't there yet?
No, no. Actually, maybe it's not clear, but I'm a freelancer and I work for Facebook as a freelancer. I'm not
Okay.
an internal employee of Docusaurus, but somehow I end up being responsible of this project
Oh
for
wow,
Facebook.
that's
So
part of the story. Then we should hear that part.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
Excited.
awesome. So we should start
Mm.
right
All
there.
right.
Okay. Can you hear my? Can you hear my?
Your mind is a powerful weapon, Jared.
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah, you picked the perfect
Mhm.
soundbite.
Do you want to hear it again?
Your mind is a powerful weapon, Jared. Yeah. Now you're just. This is self gratification. Yeah.
I have a new clip for you, Amal. Do you want to hear your new soundbite? This was
Oh
a
no.
recent. No, you're gonna like this one. It's a recent
Okay.
episode. Are you ready?
His You ready? beloved TypeScript. Yes, that's a good one. TypeScript. Nick Nisi and his beloved TypeScript. We have one of our panelists, Sebastian. Nicolas. Il aime TypeScript. Like it's like his girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Yes.
like,
Mm.
but he's married with kids. But he's got a girlfriend called TypeScript. So, anyways,
Yeah.
anyway. Okay, we should start the show, Jared.
Okay, let's start the show before Mel gets another soundbite.
Before I do something else that I regret saying or doing on the live internet. Oh, sometimes it's hard to believe that I'm a manager. I mean, people listen to me at work. It's like kind of scary, actually. It's like, how am I in charge of stuff? How am I in charge? Um.
We'll have to get the powers
Anyways.
that be to listen to the show.
Oh yeah.
Just put down a quick.
All right. And Sebastian,
Yeah.
that's the right way to say your name.
Yeah, Sébastian Lorber.
Okay.
Enfin, si tu le dis en français, Sébastien.
Sébastien. En anglais, Seb or Sebastian or like Sebastian.
I think people call me Sebastian in English, but
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you call me Seb, it's fine for me. So
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure because I know a French Seb, so that's why I asked. It's like, but
yeah,
anyways, because he kept
in,
getting annoyed about people pronouncing his name incorrectly in English. So he's like, just call me Seb. He's like, don't even
yeah,
try to
yeah,
say
yeah.
the rest of my name. But yeah, all
Nice
right, cool.
trick.
Yeah.
I may use this in the future.
All right, cool.
Ready to go?
All right, yes.
Yeah.
Here we go. Hello, friends. I am Jerod, and it is time once again. I'm joined by my friend Amal. What's up?
Hi, Jared.
Happy to have you here with me.
Same.
Are you a Docusaurus fangirl?
I am all for helpful abstractions. don't make me do the same thing twice.
There you go.
Just, just abstract it. So very excited about this show.
I am as well. I'm a big fan of documentation. It's like one of the hardest, most gritty, laborious parts of the job, but like so important. And so I appreciate anybody who works on tooling to help us all write better docs. And so we're happy to have Sébastian Lorber here with us today. What's up, Sébastian?
Hi, I'm fine, and you?
Very good. Very good. Happy to have you. We've been trying to have you on the show for a little while, but you've had less than stellar internet quality. Now you
Yeah.
have the fast internet, and we are good to go. So we've been excited for this particular episode. For those who haven't heard of Docusaurus, this is right off the website. It's a static site generator. It builds a single-page app with fast client-side navigation, leveraging the full power of React to make your site interactive. It provides out-of-the-box documentation features, but can be used to create any kind of site, like a personal site, a product, a blog, marketing landing pages, etc. That was news to me. I thought it was just about docs, but more than that. We'd love to hear your relationship to the project and how you got involved. I should say that 2.0 was like the big release this summer, a complete rewrite. And so if you've looked at Docusaurus in the past, it's worth looking at again today. Sébastian, how did you get involved with the project?
Actually, it was quite funny because it's from Twitter. I saw a tweet and I just answered, and I got the job. I'm not. The Docusaurus is from Facebook, which is now Meta, and I'm not an internal employee. I'm just a freelancer working for them on the project. So I think it was a quite unique opportunity to be paid to work on open source, which is something I always wanted to do, and it happens that I was a good candidate for the job. And 2 months after having answered that tweet, I was able to start working on the project.
What was the content of this magical tweet that got you this work? Like, help the rest of us land such jobs.
This was Joel Marcy from Facebook that tweeted something like they were looking for a contractor to work on Docusaurus. I didn't even know what Docusaurus was at this time, but I took a look and this looked interesting. So I think I didn't know the project, so before candidating, I tried it a bit to be able to understand what it was about. And I mean, documentation is not the most sexy kind of work that everybody dreams of working. It was not something I planned to work on at that time, but I thought the project was still interesting, so I wanted to get involved. And now I think I like the idea of creating nice documentation websites, and I see the value of having good documentation tools to create a great developer experience. So I think what helped to get the job is that I had like maybe 6 years of React experience at that time. And also I sent a few little pull requests with good test coverage and everything really nicely done, so that maybe the others will be able to see that I'm able to contribute to this project. So somehow I did the job before having the job so that I can get it officially.
That is so cool. So we've been talking on the show a lot about working in the open. Lately, we had a Gleb, famous legendary Gleb Bahmatov on the show again recently, talking about his open source work. And what's his name? Please, editors, cut this out while I think about his name. Sean Wang. Ugh.
Yeah, Sean Wang.
Swix, yeah.
Yes, Swix, yes. Okay, I'll start over. And Swix has been on the show a few times, and he's a huge proponent of this as well. But this idea of working in the open and all the wonderful benefits that it gives you, not in terms of just being able to showcase your work and being able to take your work with you regardless of who's paying your paycheck, right? Like, but also just the credibility that it lends you, right? So I love that. Like, the story is such a like Web 2.0 job story, like saw a tweet, like learned about this, did some open
Yeah.
source work, proved that I could do the job, and then got the job. Like I love this. Like it's, I
Yeah.
mean, I would love to hear that kind of a story
But
more often,
this
you
is
know?
this is exactly my inspiration because I mean I read maybe the Build in Public. No, it's not Build in Public. It's Learn in Public.
Working in open or working in the
Yeah,
public
but
or Nadia's
the
book.
no, it was from Sean Wang Swigs.
Oh,
He
okay. Oh,
created
right.
a gist about the topic and even
Yeah.
wrote a book about it, and I read it,
Mm-hmm.
and it gave me a lot of good ideas. I was already a contributor to open source because I contributed to things like a bit of Redux, Apollo, Redux Saga, and many other libraries in the React ecosystem, but I was not an official maintainer of any of this project. It was more opportunistic. When I had a bug in one of my projects, I fixed it. But reading the book of Sean Wang and many other things that were popular at this time on the internet led me to start creating content. I created my first blog maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and then started to post daily on LinkedIn my React insights. And this led me to creating a newsletter for React developers, which today has 10,000 developers, which is called thisweekinreact.com. And all this is somehow related because I started to create content because I wanted to. I mean, there are a lot of people that are knowledgeable, but they keep the knowledge for themselves and never share anything. And I think it's somehow a shame that the knowledge stay locked inside the brain of
Yeah.
clever people. Some people don't like social networks and things like that, so
Yeah.
so they don't share. But
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in all fairness, I think, you know, and I've mentioned this, we talked about this when Gleb was here, but like, I personally think that it's a privilege to work in the open. I think it's a privilege to share, and it's a privilege to be able to have that, like, you know, kind of unfiltered relationship with your work, right? And you know, not
yeah,
everyone has the time to do that or the ability, right? Or even just for work, like you know, you're like a lot of folks that work at Apple, like the, you know, even to communicating on social
yeah.
media is challenging, right? So, so it's a super privilege. But so, can you tell us about how you like what your role is on the project, and you know, excited to kind of get into the roadmap and all the other stuff.
So my role is actually to lead the project because we are not a big team. It's basically mostly me doing the most of the work, and there are some meta employees on which I can ask them for feedback and reviews and advice and more administrative things. But somehow I'm self-driven and try to make the best to lead the project to something that works and is successful in multiple aspects, from code to marketing. And I think it's better to ask for forgiveness. I think we say that, ask for forgiveness instead of permission. So this is a bit what I do with Docusaurus. I try to do what I feel is the right thing to do, and allocate the time as I think it should be. But it's not always easy because there are things for which I need to ask the permission, and I don't know exactly on which task exactly I need to ask the permission, and which task I can decide on myself. So so basically, it's me executing the project and reviewing the pull requests of the community and organizing the open source work around the project. But I am baked by the Meta employees that review sometimes my work and tell me, give me advice and things like that.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask a question, and if you don't want to answer it, I'll ask for forgiveness. Okay. So
Touche.
a lot the most people that work on Facebook/Meta open source projects are like full-time engineers with them. This seems like a abnormal. Maybe it's not abnormal, but it's just what the perception is. Was this like staying freelance or just contracting with them? Was this your idea? Was this their idea? Are they like a full-time job? Is it part-time? How does it work?
So first, you have to know that I'm a freelancer for like maybe 5 years. At the time I took the job, it was only for like 3 or 4 months, and I thought it will the budget will be there will be no more budget after. But the fact is that the budget was reconducted, and I took the lead of the project. And in the beginning, there was not even enough budget for me working full time on it. And now the thing is, I have my newsletter. My React newsletter takes me like 2 days a week, and I work only 3 days a week on Docusaurus, and I don't want to leave behind my newsletter. So unfortunately, I can't increase the bandwidth I spend on Docusaurus, and this is something I've always been clear about. It is that I won't be able to work 5 days a week on the project from the beginning, and for now it has worked quite well, I think. But now that the project starts to become a bit bigger, it's hard to review all the issues and the pull requests and things like that. And I know that there are some internal employees at Meta working also on the Docusaurus, but more on abstractions on top for Meta documentation websites, and they will likely take a bit, get more involved in the project in the future to help me on various things.
Oh. Yeah, that's a really cool story, and thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. Thank you for asking, Jerod. Good job. Like Jerod Santo. Watch out, Chris Williams or Chris Matthews or whoever that guy is on the news that has the hardball show, that asks hard questions. So Sebastian, you're kind of in this interesting situation where you're managing the roadmap of an open source project that's owned by a corporation, while you yourself don't work for that corporation full time because, like you stated, you don't want to commit full time right now. And so,
Yes.
what's it like managing that? And more so, can you tell us a little bit about the story of this project? Was it always open source? Did Facebook open source it at some point? And like, what was the problem that it was solving for Facebook as well? So I asked you three questions in one question.
Yeah, I can try. I will try to answer, but I was not there in the beginning, so I can't have the full context than others had at that time. But I think the project was created maybe 6 or 7 years ago, something like that. It was internal at Facebook. What they did at that time is that they had a lot of documentation websites to create. And it was not very scalable to create one documentation site for each project they had. So they wanted a tool to be able to create some kind of abstraction that permits to easily deploy a new documentation website without having to re-implement something from scratch. So what they started was to copy-paste a Jekyll template. But the problem,
do you say
obviously,
Jekyll?
yeah,
Jekyll, like
template.
old school Jekyll? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but it was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, so I guess there
Yeah.
were not a lot of alternatives at that time. I don't think maybe maybe Gatsby existed already, but I'm not even sure. So
Oh no, I don't even think that Gatsby it was in the picture at that scale yet. But I'm more just like, even 6 years ago, I thought Jekyll was kind of coming out of fashion, but maybe I'm wrong. So, but anywho,
yeah,
don't let
I
me
don't know. I never used
distract.
Yeah, we
Jekyll,
can
so
sidetrack on
I
that.
can't tell you.
We're
But
sidetracking. We're sidetracking. It's fine. So back to your story.
and so they tried to create some kind of a Jekyll boilerplate that they copied for each new documentation website, but it was not very scalable either, because if they want to add a new user experience to the template, then you had to copy paste the change to all the documentation websites. So it was easy to get started, but once you want to enhance the existing site, you had to port the change manually to each site. So the maintenance was not very scalable this time. So what they did is they had the idea of a React static site generator that would actually just focus on the documentation. And they created Docusaurus version 1 maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It was open sourced. I don't know if it was created before being open sourced or the opposite. I think maybe it started internally, maybe 6 months before being open source. I don't know exactly when it started internally, but it was open source maybe 5 years ago, I think.
Okay.
So they created Docusaurus 1, and the idea is that you just write Markdown files on a Git repository, and then you can run a command, and it builds a static site, and you can customize some things like the color of the navbar or many theme things that you want to add a bit of branding to your documentation site. It was possible to change the color and add your logo and footer and things like that. So they had some configuration options, and you just run a command, and then it builds your website. And there was another command that you can run if you want to deploy to GitHub pages for free. You could easily do that as well. So this was the idea of Docusaurus. So now maybe you wonder why there is Docusaurus 2 and why it was released maybe 4 years after the version 1 and why it took so long.
Yeah.
So
Real quick, Sebastian, before I started, I've been doing some sleuthing, and I'll just follow up on Amal's sidetrack. So the initial Jekyll release, 2008. The initial Gatsby first release was 2017. So Jekyll definitely, by the time 2012, 2013 hit, Jekyll had some 5 years, and Gatsby was still not invented yet. Now there was Hugo, there were other options that definitely could have played that game, but nonetheless, I just thought I'd follow up with that.
Yeah, thank you, fact checker Jerod Santo. He points for you.
I do like the history of these things. It's interesting to remember because we've lived through it, but it's hard to like place. When was this? When did that happen? Was this before that? Yeah, and certainly back then.
I think the idea of Jamstack and things like that, and Netlify and CI that post a command with the deploy previews and things like that, it didn't exist at that time. I think maybe when they were working on Docusaurus, static site generators were not very popular. I think many people thought it was some kind of toy that you used to create your own personal website, but not anything more significant than that. And so it was a good time to build another static site generator with a focus on documentation, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's kind of wild to think all of these things only have existed for a short number of years. It's like, my God, I can't even imagine what life would be like without them. But before we get into the second segment, I just wanted to quickly, if you want to finish your thoughts on this like V1, V2 kind of this really long gap. It's like, my God, is this thing JavaScript or something? You know how JavaScript had a party with ES5 and then didn't show up to the party for many decades later. Again, I'm just joking, but there was a very long period of time where there was no innovation, right? So then Docusaurus comes back with V2 and it's like, bam, I'm here. So can you tell us about that?
Somehow there were some problems with the version 1 is that it was not very flexible. I think the main difference that you would notice is that it was not very flexible. You couldn't really add your documentation website. So all the documentation websites in V1 kind of looked like each other's. It's just that you could change the logo, the footer, the navbar items, and the colors, but not much more than that. You could customize your CSS by providing a custom CSS, but it's not very flexible. If you can't change the markup behind, you are a bit limited. And also a big difference in a technical perspective is that it used React at that time, but only on the server side. So React was never loaded on the client side, and it was a multi-page application, not a single-page application. So it's like you did React, but only server side. You used React.
I was like, what's wrong with that? I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Don't open that can.
I'm just joking. I'm sorry. I was like, it sounds like the right way to manage static content, but okay, whatever. We won't go there.
This is
Hold it,
this is an
Sebastian.
interesting thing.
We don't want to dive too deep too fast.
Okay, cool.
Because that's definitely on the list of things to talk about.
Yeah, so this is an interesting thing to discuss here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was only used on the server, and React was never loaded on the client. So when you click on a link, it wouldn't give a single page application navigation feeling. It was like you reload the page like in Jekyll. And the application that didn't have the turbo modules, or I don't remember exactly what it was in Rails. I think there was a system to be able to navigate seamlessly between multi-page
Yeah, turbo links.
applications. Yeah, turbo links, right. So
All right. Well, we will pause right here. It's time to take a quick break, and this is the best break teaser of all times because we opened up a can partially. We just kind of like snapped the
Yeah.
thing open, but we didn't get the rest of the can open.
Yeah,
And
it's
we're
like if
opening
you
it up right on the other side.
yeah, it's like if you have cats, you're opening up a tuna can or you're opening up a can and they smell it,
Right.
So yeah, so just stay tuned, kids. We'll be right back.
Smell that spicy hot takes. All right, we're on a break now.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I was like, oh no, yeah,
Well,
my
this
brain
will
is
be a
like
good-
catnip.
Yeah. This would be good. Cool.
So
Does anybody need to
Jerod,
step
where do we
away?
want to go? I'm good.
So
How do we want to frame this?
I mean, so we broached the topic. Do we want to talk about the process at all of the rewrite, or do you want to jump into today? I don't care either way. I mean, sometimes a big rewrite's interesting. Is it interesting, Sebastian? Did it take a long time? Were there major corrections?
I think it's interesting in the sense that we try to be feature complete with the version 1, and there may be some parts that are not very interesting and a bit sad is that I didn't want to talk too much about it in the show, but I think I got the job because one employee at Facebook had a cancer, and he was one of the principal contributor of the project, and he died maybe a few months before I got the job. So I think it's probably a bit related because you have a project that is taking off, and
Yeah.
you lose one of the main contributors, so you are or someone else to take the lead. I can
Yeah.
tell because I'm not internal to Meta, but it's a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
It's a bit-
that's harsh. Oh
that
gosh,
is
sorry
harsh.
to
I
hear
mean,
that.
We talk about bus factor in the abstract, but like when it comes to a real human life, it's like a
Jeez.
different thing altogether, right?
Totally.
So that's interesting, but yeah. Well, I mean, I think that does play into the rewrite story to a certain extent, right? Because now you have all this domain knowledge that just disappears, and
Yeah. So
or we could just open up and just talk about features right out of the gate and go right into it.
So I was hoping to get into like what does V2 bring to the table and why has it
Yeah.
kind of reinvigorated
Yeah.
this project? And I think it would be great to kind of maybe talk about that stuff either next or at some point in the second.
Yeah, I
segment,
think it's important to mention that what we build is modular. So we have a plugin architecture so that the community can implement features.
When you
Somehow
say
we have-
modular, you mean like the architecture is extensible so people can write
yeah,
plugins?
we have a
Or-
system, a plugin system, and the community created already a lot of community plugins that they
Okay.
maintain themselves.
Yeah.
And it was not possible in version 1, and it's quite powerful. It's a bit like somehow the architecture of Docusaurus V2 is quite inspired by Gatsby. So it's somehow really we market it as a documentation tool, but it's more like a generic static site generator like Gatsby, but we didn't add the GraphQL layer because it was a bit complicated. And I think it was the right choice because today people don't like Gatsby much, mostly because of the GraphQL layer.
It's kitchen
that it has.
sink. It's kitchen sink. Gatsby's like
Yeah.
a kitchen sink. But so I guess so Jerod, however
where to
you
go.
whatever wherever you want to go, you take us there.
take
I'm
us
here for
there.
the ride.
Okay. I'll take us there.
Yeah.
You ready to go, Sebastian?
Yeah.
Okay. So 2.0 has arrived. It looks great. I mean, the website looks great. The list of things it does looks great. So congratulations, first of all, on shipping a big rewrite. I'm sure that was a lot of effort, took a lot of time. And we talked about it a bit at the start, but one of the big features now is it is a single page app. And Amal and I both had the same guttural response of like a content focused documentation site seems like the perfect fit for a statically generated multi-page HTML thing.
Yeah.
Don't you lose SEO? Don't you lose certain aspects? Don't you want your stuff to be fast and crawlable? It seems like, though, looking through the site, that you guys have thought of all these things. So let's just open up. Let's finish opening that can, and let's just talk about it. And then we'll go through some of the other things that
Yeah,
has done.
I think I can maybe talk for half an hour just on that topic, but you will see a lot of things on Twitter. There are people that say, yeah, why do you want to use React to create a blog? And there are memes with you create a very complex thing with Webpack and TypeScript, and then you have a blog with just one article. And yeah, of course,
it's because we love JavaScript. We addicted to it. We love it all the time. We want it in our veins, and give me more.
So, I think my position is that it's a bit simple. I think the navigation of single page application is great. When you click on a link, you can navigate almost instantly to the next page. Why is that? Is that because the fact that it is a single page application, we can prefetch the resources that are needed for the related pages. For example, if you hover a link, you can prefetch the React components for the page that you are about to visit. And once you click on a link, then it's almost instant because you just have to do the client-side rendering. So I think this gives a great experience, and also there are new features in React that will even improve things. For example, this is not something that is really officially mentioned, but I believe that the future of React is that you can start to render the next page that you are about to visit even before you actually click the link, because React with the new features with concurrent React, you can somehow render multiple React trees in parallel, and you are able to somehow eagerly render pages that the user may never visit. So somehow it's a bit weird, but potentially when you click on the button, you could actually render really instantly.
What's so funny, Amal?
I'm so sorry.
What's so funny?
I don't know.
I'm just laughing because it's like I kept waiting for you to say because React knows what you're thinking,
Oh.
No, but
because all you need to do is put this little sticker on the side of your users' foreheads, and React will just read their minds and prefetch all the links that they're going to click.
You joke, but there is a
there's some machine learning driving I'm sure the prefetching strategy. I'm sure about it. I mean it was a half joke.
There is I think a project called Guess.js, and it uses Google Analytics data to predict, I think, the are most likely to visit, and there is a Gatsby plugin for that.
Yeah.
I mean, so for me,
I'll just say that's fascinating, but man, that's just a whole lot of engineering.
Yep.
Yeah.
When you could just let him click on it,
and avoid using JavaScript and just have it be static and whatever else. No, actually, so first of all, this is cool. I think it's interesting. For me, that you're leveraging oh my god, I can't even say this word. You're leveraging pre-caching and prefetching and whatever else, right? So this optimistic kind of architecture, and so which is great, but I mean, for me, all of that needs to be like, you need to be a little conservative with that, because your users might be on a mobile device. Are they
Yeah.
on Wi-Fi? Are they on 3G? Are you
Yeah, but
prefetching a
we.
bunch of things on their data
Mm,
plan? Are you making their machine do more than it needs to right now because they're low on battery? I mean, right? So you want to be
yeah.
conservative with that. It's a superpower,
Yeah, I
you
agree
know?
because so first I want to mention that we don't do the prefetching if there is a low bandwidth or data saving or whatever, we can prevent that, and then it will only fetch the components once the user clicks, so it's possible. And somehow I think, yeah, for sure it's a trade-off because you can, for example, even pre-rendering, I said that you can start to render the next component of the next page, but maybe the user has a very bad CPU and wants to preserve the battery. So why don't
Correct.
you want to? It's not just the bandwidth; it's also the CPU. You have to,
It's also comes down to the environment, right? Like, I mean, we need to start
yeah,
talking as a community more broadly around digital trash and like compute power, right? Like, there's still trees and resources being used too,
yeah,
right? So there's also an
that's right.
element
Yeah.
of needing to be
Mm.
environmentally conscious. But anyway, so back to V2. So you've made this migration and this shift to use React, and it was an intentional decision to, not use server-side
Yeah.
rendering and whatnot. And can you talk to us a little bit about like what were the driving forces behind that decision? Like,
Um, I wasn't there at the time, so I can't really say. I think maybe the decision to create the Docusaurus version 2 was decided maybe 2 years before I joined the project, so I don't know
okay,
exactly all the context, but
Right.
I think it's a meta product, so uh, they wanted, of course, to use React because this is their
Unify.
popular framework, and also I think
yeah,
there are some things that multi-page applications can do. For example, if you have an intercom button at the bottom of your dock or some kind of chat widget or whatever, if you navigate from one page to another, it's really annoying if the widget resets itself. For example, it loses state.
yes,
So there are a lot of great developer experience on content sites that you still want to benefit from preserving the state when navigating from one page to another.
Right.
So I think it has benefits to have a single page application navigation, even on a content website. But maybe the things will change because the browser APIs are evolving. I know that there are some APIs like transition APIs and shared element transitions and many things like that that permits to animate the transition from one page to another. I don't know exactly how it works for the state, but maybe there are some workarounds. But I think it would be still a bit complicated to replicate the user experience of a single page application for multiple use cases, including the chat widget that we have on the documentation website, for example.
So to be clear, on the website in the docs, it says that for every page there is an HTML page that is generated
Yeah.
and is
So you,
available. And so
yeah,
that's how you handle, for instance, SEO. Like they're all different
yeah.
pages. But
So
then this SPA is almost like a progressive enhancement, if you will, for like a more interactive usage of the site. Is that fair to say? Like it's
yeah,
almost like thinking of it
it's
that way as like an
yeah,
upgrade,
it's
but you don't have
exactly
to have
like
it.
it's exactly like Next.js or Gatsby. So you render the page on the server. We render it statically because we don't have any server-side rendering. So it's at build time that we render all the pages, like classic static site generator, and then the browser loads the HTML page, and then we load React on top of that page to enhance it with the single page application. But I agree that this may seem overkill for a documentation website, and we actually take care of making it. I mean, I care a lot about progressive enhancement. So for me, the idea is that almost all the documentation sites should work without JavaScript enabled. So you should be able to navigate across the pages to be able to navigate inside the documentation sidebar that permits to navigate inside your content.
Yeah.
You should be
yeah.
able to do many things. Maybe there are some things that don't work, like being able to search or to toggle the dark mode, but those are not too critical, and you can consult the content without
Yeah.
JavaScript.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, I'm really glad you said that because I was gonna bring up this point about curl, right? Like, especially for content sites, like especially for developer documentation sites. Like, if I'm in my terminal and I just want to look up something, one of the things I really like about NPM, like NPM, the entire API catalog, right? Similar to, native built-ins from Unix, right? Like then, you just go to the man pages, right? So manual, man short for manual, not man like person man. And so, right. So
That's the
and
patriarchy that named
right,
those, isn't it?
right, probably. Our problematic ancestors or whatever, right?
We should
So
have some woman pages out there. shouldn't we?
yes, I'm all about that. Yes, why not? So anyways, so you can in the npm CLI, right? Like all the documentation is available to you right there. You never have to go to a browser. Same thing for being able to curl a website's documentation would be nice too, because I can just curl, pipe into whatever, and just I can do all my searching and grepping very efficiently on from my terminal window. And so for me, it's like I'm glad to learn that okay, that the SPA is like a shim layer, and there is a core HTML that's still generated. That's awesome. However, like I guess for me, it still feels like overkill, but it's okay. We can agree to disagree. I mean, I'm not going to love
Yeah.
every single thing about this project.
Actually,
So-
this is not something that exists today, but what I really like is that there is a mod of Docusaurus that works 100% without any JavaScript. So,
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
for example, I have a pull request where it basically doesn't hydrate JS like it used to do in the past. But there are
nice.
some things that do not work currently with this mod. For example, the search. And I asked the Algolia team if they could maybe create an endpoint so that if someone search while JS is disabled, it will just submit a regular form to an URL where they could get the search results and things like that. So
That is
I
so
really
cool.
care about all this so that the experience can be almost 100% complete with
Yeah.
Right.
with JS disabled. But this
Yeah.
is complicated. Yeah, there are some
It
things.
is.
Even accessibility is not always easy without JavaScript. So
Totes.
Well, hopefully, I mean, over time, Docusaurus can be a great example of somebody who's done this style web app, but has taken into consideration all of these factors and
Yep.
provided accessible, fast HTML for who needs it and fancy JS transitions for who wants those. So I think that's really cool. We are getting a bit bogged down because I think we just have different opinions on architectures here, but there's tons of cool features in this thing. The write your docs in Markdown, it's all MDX powered, so you can embed code things inside of it. Why don't you move us down the path of what else Docusaurus 2 has to offer?
So first, the idea was to be feature complete with version 1. So what we did is to have the advanced features like versioning. So if you want to manage multiple versions of your documentation, you can just create a snapshot copy of the current documentation and then have two versions in parallel in the same Git branch. This is a bit different from other projects that use one version per Git branch for the documentation. And I think it's interesting to be able to do both on a case-by-case basis, which it's possible with Docusaurus. So for example, if you have 2 or 3 versions of your product in parallel, in the same Git branch, the thing is that you can port the change in your product to 3 versions of the documentation in a single pull request. So this is really easier to manage. For example, if you implement a feature in version 2 and then backport it to version 1 for a reason and another, you can just submit one docs pull request, and then you will be able to update version 1 and version 2 documentation in a single pass. So this is easier for maintenance. And also we have support for IATN to be able to translate your website. It was also possible with the version 1. How it works is that you can just adopt a file system convention so that you can put the translation files, the Markdown translated files in a specific folder, and then they will somehow override the content in English if it's your main language, and you can run your website with a clear command with the local on which you want to build the site, so that you can deploy, for example, the French site or the English site, depending on your CI or whatever you want. And so these are some features of Docusaurus 1 that still are in Docusaurus 2. And Docusaurus 2 brings the ability to have a plugin system. So this enables the community to be able to create plugins to enhance the Docusaurus site with their own logic. For example, reading Markdown files in a proprietary format or XML files or whatever they want is possible. So it's much more flexible, and also we have a lot of theming capabilities. This time, unlike Docusaurus version 1, when it was not possible to customize the HTML markup and you could just provide some CSS, with Docusaurus 2, you are able to override somehow any React component that renders the UI. So if you are not satisfied with the default, you can always, we call this eject. We call this Swizzle, and there are two modes with Swizzle. There is eject, which will create a local copy of the theme component that you want to customize, and there is also wrap, which is somehow creates a React wrapper component around an existing one. So, for example, if you have a component and you want to add something else before or after this component in the UI, it's possible without a lot of maintenance, because you don't have to create a copy of the original component. Because if you create a copy, you have to maintain it over time, and it might break, because if we do a change in Docusaurus, maybe you will be affected by changes, and your site will fail if you upgrade, for example. So the more you customize, the more it's likely to break. But we try really hard to make it easy to maintain over time, and we try to constantly improve on this side. So the idea of Docusaurus 2 for me is to be able to really create the really great looking documentation websites for your project without too much pain, and at the same time have enough flexibility to add a very strong branding, but not in an unmaintainable way. So I think this is why you can see today that there are some really big companies using Docusaurus. From recently, we have seen Snapchat, Figma also, Supabase, and many other large companies like that. You can't even know that they have a Docusaurus site, because some of them really customize them. So even me, if I go to the site, I have to open the DevTools to be sure that it was a Docusaurus site. And I constantly, every time I go to a website, I ask myself, is this Docusaurus? I don't know.
Am I in the Matrix? Is this real? Is chicken really chicken? What does chicken taste like? Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So do you leave a little
When is
Easter
Figma
egg for
gonna send me
yourself?
my options, on that,
Yeah, on that sale.
how about something
Darn
for the
it.
effort, the 20 bills? I'll take one. Just give me one bill.
Okay, so first of all, wow, a lot to unpack there. So let's just take it from the top. Document versioning, right?
Yeah.
So that's huge. So when I heard about that, I was like, oh my God, like, wow, talk about solving a really big pain point for maintainers. I mean, this is something where, unfortunately, it's one of those things where, it's felt by the maintainer community, not so much the broader developer community, right?
Yeah.
But it is a real problem. Like, maintaining versions of your sorry, I'm going to start over. Maintaining versions of your documentation, within the same repo, getting the npm publish, to show that correctly, yada, yada, yada. I mean, it's for every major version, patch, and minor version of whatever that you're supporting. It's like a huge undertaking to keep those docs in sync as well. So first of all, like, amazing feature. And then like the translations piece that you talked about, like the internationalization support. So that's not necessarily new, but it seems like you have some enhancements that you've made to the core
Yeah.
functionality in V2. But that itself is huge too. Like being able to kind of, I love this idea of like, what are all the things that you need to do to maintain documentation like sites, right? You need to maintain it in different versions. You need to possibly get it translated. You need to, people are going to want to search it, right? So you have the search functionality as well. So it's like all of these things that like everybody's doing manually in different ways and
Yeah.
poorly. You all have kind of abstracted and created these clean interfaces for the community to leverage, especially the maintainer community, right? Because these are the folks that are
Yeah.
doing the hero's work already. So anything we can do to make their lives easier is like
Yeah.
just a huge win. And so glad to hear about all the success and adoption. I mean, in looking at the website today, like I'm seeing, Mark Erickson, our beloved Mark Erickson, talking about this, Max Lynch from the Angular community,
Yeah.
Superbase, Kent C. Dawes, you name it, all these people, Debbie O'Brien, right? So lots of folks kind of singing praises for this project. So I mean, like kudos. It's pretty good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's feedback that you've been getting about V2 in terms of kind of missing functionality or things that could be improved? Can we talk about the like the part
I
of the
think,
retro that's like what
yeah,
to improve?
so I don't have a lot of bandwidth to work on Docusaurus, and unfortunately, it's hard for me because there are a lot of, there are more and more issues and pull requests, and the large projects of I have some goals for Docusaurus, but it's difficult to execute them because I don't have enough time to do both the community work and the marketing and the implementation of the huge features. But I think some of the most requested ones are a Tailwind theme. So the idea for me for a Tailwind theme would be that it shares exactly the same user experience as the one we have currently. Maybe some UI details will change a bit, but we don't want to duplicate all the code that we did for the accessibility, the layouts and the things like that. It's a bit too complicated to have to duplicate things and somehow manage a new copy of all the work that we already did on the UI. So the goal for me is progressively to share most of the code in a separate package, which is agnostic of the style. Some React components that are here, but don't contain any class name. Somehow they just contain the logic, but they encapsulate the logic of the theme, but not the UI.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is all fantastic stuff. So we're going to talk about the plugin architecture, which is kind of the secret sauce for how all these big companies like Figma, Superbase were able to kind of create these Docusaurus sites without even folks like Sebastian knowing, right? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the community. We're going to talk about the marketing. We're going to talk about the roadmap. I'm super interested to go back to the governance thing that I brought up earlier. So lots of all this and more. We'll be right back. Okay. I just wanted a break, so we were like going deep. So I just would love to continue that discussion and pop back to kind of the plugin architecture, because you kind of hinted on it a little bit. So I'd love to get into that because I want to hear about all these customizations. And then from there, maybe we could go into the governance roadmap piece, and then we talk about the community piece, and we can kind of end it there.
Okay.
Does that sound good? Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about yet?
No, I think it's I don't know. I'm thinking, but no, I think we mentioned about a bit of everything. Maybe I don't think it's too. Maybe don't talk too much about the governance thing, because somehow I'm quite self-driven
I don't want to get you in
project,
trouble.
and I don't know exactly. I mean, it's complicated because the open source.
We're live on YouTube, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah,
so don't say anything that you don't want on
say
YouTube.
anything.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
What
Yeah,
what
So
I mean is
making
that the community always think that the projects from big companies like Meta have a full team of engineers working on it, but it's not true. And
I
you
know.
know, even React.js
React is a tiny
doesn't
team.
have. Yeah, it's
I know.
and Docusaurus is even smaller. I mean,
yeah.
I think it will increase over time, but for now, it's mostly me and external contributors and some help from Facebook, but uh, there is no
Okay.
internal employee
S-
working full time on this.
Okay,
So
so what can we cover? Because I do want to say something because I mentioned it. So can we talk about what you just said? What you just exactly said?
yeah,
I'll just
okay.
say broadly say, Seb, can you tell us about the governance model for this project since it's like, a corporate project, but also
Mm,
it's in the open. Like how would you like me to phrase it?
no, I don't know. I just want to. It's complicated because I don't know exactly what I could say or could not say.
Okay,
So
so then let's forget it. Jared, I guess you guys can edit, or it doesn't matter. You
Yeah.
can leave it in there. We don't have to. Okay, so do you
We
want
can
to?
take that part out.
Yeah, do you want to you want to start us off, Jared?
Yeah.
Go to plugin architecture and whatever else.
So it sounds like one of the things that makes Docusaurus 2 so usable in all these different contexts is that plugin architecture. Let me say that again. I said that really weird. Is that plugin architecture. Sebastian, can you give
yeah.
us some examples? You mentioned theming, so that one I guess immediately resonates in my brain. But like, what are some other things that you can do with plugins? And then we'll get into the actual way that you do
Well,
them.
so first you have to understand that the core features of Docusaurus have been implemented with plugins. So we have three core plugins, which is the Docs plugin to create a documentation section of your site. We have the Page plugin, which permits to create landing pages on your site. And we have the Blog plugin, which permits to create the blog. The Docs plugin is somehow like the Page plugin, but instead you have a navigation sidebar on the side, which permits to navigate across a set of documentation, and there is versioning and things like that. So all the features that we have created for Docusaurus that are opinionated toward the content-centric focus is actually, those are free plugins, and that's all. If you want to create, for example, tomorrow, a new plugin, for example, you want to create a digital garden or title custom or Obsidian thing or whatever, you could build that with Docusaurus. We don't provide this officially, but you could. If you want to integrate with a CMS, you could also create a plugin and try to wire it to your CMS. And some people do that already. You have the freedom to create whatever you want. The idea of a plugin is that you can read a source, for example, a source folder for files that you want to read as a source for your content. But it can be a remote source if you want. We don't provide much tool to integrate with CMS, but it's possible technically. And then once you have read the source, you can translate the content that you read from the source if you want to internationalize it. And then from the translated content, you are able to create the pages. You say which, you add the pages to the plugin will create pages, and a page has a permalink so that you can have the final URL of the page. It has a React component that is supposed to render it, and it has the props that the component is supposed to receive. So the plugin is responsible to create the routes of that it manages, and then the theme is supposed to render those pages. And you can we provide also a theme which implements the UI for the free pages that the free content plugins that we created, the docs, the blog, and the page plugin. But you can also override with you can override
With
any
your
of the.
own
Yeah,
your own version. Okay.
you can create your own components to implement your own theme that works with our plugins if you want, or you can just take the existing theme and say Yeah, I don't like the footer of this theme, but everything else is fine. So I will just override the footer and implement something.
Oh, nice. So that's the modularity piece where like everything
Yeah,
is replaceable. So if I hear this, if I understood you correctly, you're saying that like we have a core architecture that supports kind of smart defaults, and there's a turnkey experience, but all aspects of the core defaults can be overwritten, like down to the like footer level, right?
yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
It's not
Yeah.
just the footer. You can actually override any file in
Right.
the theme. So this is powerful, but at the same time, this is dangerous because it creates an implicit API surface for Docusaurus, where, for example, if you decide to override a component and then in the next version of Docusaurus we decide to rename it, then your app
Yeah.
will lose the customizations. So you
Of
will have to
course.
figure out why we decided to rename this component. So now what we started to do recently is that we mark the components as safe to override or dangerous, and then
Oh, nice.
the maintainer of the site decide for himself if he really wants to do something dangerous or not. But I mean, it's not very dangerous.
Did we lose you? Can
So
you hear
this is
me? Oh, sorry, Seb. Sebastian, we lost you.
ah,
What you said, but it's not very dangerous, and then you cut out. So,
yeah. So if you, for example, override a component and then we decide to rename it in the next version of Docusaurus, you will lose the customization. So this is the danger. So somehow you can break your seat if you upgrade it and you use the next version of Docusaurus, and then you can't build because it fails because you have components that do not receive exactly the same props and things like that. So we have a lot of components and you can override everything, but there are some components that are more suitable to be overridden than others. So you have
yeah.
to use this powerful tool carefully to make sure that the upgrades are not too painful somehow.
Oh yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, any amount of like monkey patching and or like heavy usage of undocumented APIs, right? Like
Yeah.
there's like like you can do this. This isn't in the docs, but you can, right? Like it always comes with a risk. So it's always like there be dragons warning or
Mm.
like you should never be surprised when your stuff breaks. That being said, I'd love to hear about examples. Like, can you share any highlights of some cool customizations that have been done in the wild for kind of high
Um,
traffic sites?
we have seen quite a very different set of customizations. I think some the most common ones are adding a command system at the bottom of your blog or your docs. If you look at the React Native website, there is, for example, a rating system. You can rate the page on which you are to say if the
Yes.
documentation is helpful or not. I've seen a lot of custom footers too, because companies like to have their branding in the footer and something that is quite similar to their main website. There are some customizations on the fonts and the colors and many other things. And um, really, it's very diverse. I think there is
Yeah.
no,
Imagination is the only limit, right? Like,
yeah,
so, to some degree, yeah. No,
we
that's
have
cool.
a page on the website which called the seed showcase, and you can take a look. There are maybe 200 sites there, and
Yeah.
you can sort them by. For example, we have edit tags to each site. For example, if a site has a great design, we marked it with a design tag so that you can easily get some inspiration
Nice.
from great open source websites and eventually steal their code if you want to replicate what they did. So this is
Yeah.
quite useful for the community
Yeah, that
to,
showcase is great. It's very
yeah.
fun to just scroll through and very impressive, all of the sites that are being built with this. I assume that the plugins are distributed just via npm if you're going to actually get that out there to the public, or how do you, if I wanted to share it outside of
Um,
my org?
So on for Docusaurus Core plugins, they are all in the mono repo with the Docusaurus Core code. So the free plugins that we maintain are officially distributed on NPM under the Docusaurus org. And community plugins are published on NPM like any other NPM package, so you can just NPM install them and install them. And also we have seen some quite interesting plugins, for example, for local search. For example, we use Algolia by default, which is a solution that we maintain officially. Algolia Doc Search, which is free for open source technical documentations and things like that, I think. But if you can't use Algolia for various reasons, if you don't want to pay or if you don't want your data to be owned by Algolia, you can install a local search plugin. And I think there are a few options based on various local search libraries like Lunar, Fuser, and things like that. There are a lot of different client-side browser search libraries implementing tokenization and things like that. So I think we have 3 popular local search plugins today. And also, for example, many websites want to document an API. And today, I think we have 2 Open API plugins to document your API if you want to add this to your documentation website. And there is also a Redoc plugin, Docusaurus, which permits also to use Redoc, which permits to document an open API inside the Docusaurus.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, the open. Editors are gonna fix this. The open API spec integration is very exciting, and it's like a no-brainer, right? Like that's so cool.
And the thing is, you don't even need actually to use a plugin to implement this, because, for example, there is a site that I really like. It's the Courier website. They have a doc with an interactive API client, and they implemented this only with MDX. So just with MDX, they built a really great developer experience where you can just add your API token and then play with the API. And it's just because we can embed React components inside your doc, you can build already very advanced things.
That's very cool. That's super cool. And so, like, so can we talk about the community and like, you know, just what, like, how they can kind of participate in the roadmap? Is there like an open roadmap somewhere that like where people can like upvote, or they can see what's coming next? Like, how, like, what's the community story for Docusaurus? Do you have a Discord channel? Is there like, what are all the things?
we have a very active Discord channel where you can easily find help, and when you ask a question, generally I answer that you should join Discord, because most questions are easy questions, and there are a lot of helpful persons in Discord that will be able to answer. So it's better if I keep my time to implement difficult features instead of doing too much support, because it's somehow endless. So
yeah,
you know. So the Discord is very active, and I think we don't have a very clear roadmap, because I mean, open source is complicated. There is also a new important bug that gets opened, and still the priority of something less priority but more important. So I try to implement important features like supporting the next version of React and things like that progressively. When I have time, and once there is enough progress, then I will release it. Sometimes we discuss a bit about what kind of new features we want soon in Docusaurus, and when we release a new version, we mark some goals that we have for future versions of Docusaurus, but we don't commit to releasing, for example, a list of features in the next version of Docusaurus. I think what we want to do is maybe release 3 or 4 times a major version per year, and try to have at least a few major features in each major version. And the idea is that we don't block a release because a feature is not implemented, because you know, sometimes you decide 3 months before that you want to have this feature, and then you find out that it's not possible at
Yeah.
that time because there
Yeah.
are some blockers. So
Also,
yeah,
things change. I mean, honestly, like if you're planning things
yeah,
out 3 months in advance, sometimes it's like, is that thing even still relevant? Like,
yeah,
it's good. There's the urgency factor is like so understated when it comes to like roadmap planning. It's like, is it still important? Is it still urgent? Is it still, because if it's important and urgent, usually you're getting to it sooner, right? So it's a natural
yeah.
selection of the roadmap almost. And by the way, I just wanted to give you a shout out because we had Matteo Collina and his co-founder Luca Marazzi. They were on the show last week talking to us about Platformatic DB, which is like this like incredible new open source project that's like sane APIs and sane conventions. They built in all this good standards into this library for kind of more turnkey experience, and they are using Docusaurus for their
Yeah.
site. So just for what it's worth, and they gave you a shout out they gave the project a shout out on the show last week. So.
Thank you. I didn't
Yeah.
know they were using it, so
Now you know.
nice
You
to
know.
know.
You
Yeah,
know.
One more
yeah,
thing to add to the showcase. Although Matteo
right.
was there, yeah, Matteo was like, I don't have good CSS skills. I had to Google how to like add an element to the page. He's like HTML, CSS. He's like he lives under the hood.
yeah.
He's
Right.
like
So
Mr. Yeah.
about the showcase, it's not exhaustive actually. I don't. I mean, we decided to not add sites unless they submit it. And currently, I try to streamline the submit process. You just have to comment in an issue, and you say, "I want to be added. Here is
Oh,
my
nice.
site. Here is the source code, and I want this title and this description, and that's all." But the thing
Cool.
is, there are a lot of websites that are not added yet. And for example, I wish Snapshot and Figma and others would submit their site, but it didn't happen yet. So
Yeah. So this is how I know that this project is backed by a real by a company that's funded versus like a starving startup, because the startup doesn't ask for permission. They're like, "Oh, Figma's using our thing. Figma's
Right.
going on our website."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
You're so modest. You're like, "Oh
Yeah.
well, I'm just gonna wait for them to submit."
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
somebody on
Maybe
Forbes.com commented once on an article and put our name in there as seen on Forbes, as
Yeah.
featured. That's how startups roll.
Pretty much. We have offices in New York, Boston, Chicago, everywhere, all the places the internet reaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're a
Yeah.
global
Yeah.
company.
Global. Global,
Yeah.
like.
The good thing about Docusaurus is that people know that it's used because you can recognize most of the time the layout everywhere
Yeah, like a
you browse.
bootstrap. It's like yeah.
Yeah. So,
Remember Twitter Bootstrap? You could always
but-
tell like what's Twitter Bootstrap websites.
yeah.
Yep.
The problem is that the best sites you don't often recognize Docusaurus because they customized it. So, for example, if you go to Ionic, I think you don't know it's Docusaurus. If you go to the Figma plugins website, honestly, I had to double check. I wasn't sure, and I was really happy
So
to
what's
know
the
that,
Litmus Litmus test? What do you do? How do you know for sure it's Docusaurus?
you open the HTML and there is a header meta static site generator, I think, at the top of the file, so you know for sure that it's Docusaurus if there is this meta tag.
Okay, what if they strip that out? They don't want to give you any props.
Yeah, they could strip it out, but I don't think
What's
there
the
is a
next
lot of
test? You
value.
have to have a fallback test. It's a cascading thing.
Source code.
Yeah, I can recognize from the CSS and the HTML if it's Docusaurus, but
I'm
yeah,
sure you can. That's
Yeah.
how you know you've entered the matrix, when you can just see it.
Yeah.
See it for yourself.
You know what though? Speaking of code fingerprints are very real, y'all. Like, I guess when looking at ransomware and all this other stuff, like they're able to find the patterns, and so they know, oh, this group is responsible for this ransomware attack. Because apparently your code don't lie. So like your code is always like it speaks for you. It's like, oh, this person wrote this code. But yeah. But no, this has been a really fun discussion, and it's a cool project. I haven't used it myself. I've just always seen my maintainer friends rave about this project, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. It's solving so many good problems.
Yeah, you should. You can try. If you want to try immediately, you just have to go to docusaurus.new in your browser, and Docusaurus run. Yeah, it works in Code Sandbox and StackBlitz, so you can try in 5 minutes. I made the tutorial very, very fast. really,
Yes.
in 5 minutes, you understand the value of the project. So
Yeah.
Oh,
try it
that's
now.
so cool. Yeah,
Well, I'll
try it
say that
now.
there's it's obvious to me why so many smart people are singing Docusaurus's praises. Docusaurus is a hard thing to say, Sebastian, because you definitely sweated the details. It's clear to me, even though you may have a different take on SPAs than I do, that you've thought it out and you've like actually done the hard
Mm.
work of like figuring out answers. Some people just pick an SPA and throw it over the fence and don't care about their users. You clearly do. One
No,
example of
no.
that in your own website's documentation, even go so far as like helping people pick their deployment targets based on how much work they want to put in and how much money they have,
Nice.
kind of a thing. I mean, like you do
Mm.
a really, really good job of being a great documentation site for a documentation site generator, which probably you feel like you have to because it's about docs, but it's also clear that you want to because you've put so much work in, all the little details. Really, really good job. It's an impressive project. So
Yeah.
definitely,
Thank
I haven't
you.
used it myself, but I'm already waiting to. Like
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah. It is cool. And also, can we plug your newsletter? It sounds like a really important project, and I've heard about it. I might even be subscribed for all I know, honestly. But I have definitely seen something like this. Is it This
This
Week in
week in
React?
React.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Where can people
And
go to learn about that?
.com.
.com?
this week in
Okay.
React.com.
There you go. Don't make it too hard
So
on us.
actually, I created the website with Docusaurus because I thought
Nice.
Oh,
it was a nice idea to use the tool that I'm working on
yeah.
with Facebook, and also because it has a nice internationalization features, and my newsletter is localized, so I have maybe 300 subscribers in French and 8,000 in
Oh.
English, and I have to send every week the email in two languages.
Oh my
So
God. Okay, so but
That's
honestly though,
cool.
this is where I feel I'm so excited to hear that because I come trying to keep telling teams like being inclusive and being diverse as a business, it pays.
mm,
Businesses that cater to multiple markets, multiple audiences, multiple different kinds of people, that's a wider reach. And just right there, I mean, my gosh, how many thousands of subscribers do you have reading it in French? And French is one of the most widely spoken
yeah.
languages in the world. I mean, so super cool. I'm just wow. Thank you for doing that.
So do you
I
write it twice?
I write it in French first, and then I translate it in English, and it takes maybe half an hour. I try to do a quick translation. I use DeepL to help me a bit to get faster. But
yeah
I'm not a native English speaker, and I do
Yeah.
mistakes, and I think the audience forgives me because the content is great.
yeah
So that's what matters. And I mean, the newsletter in French and English is could deserve its own talk, but maybe not on this podcast.
Sure.
But there are a lot of interesting things being in two languages. I try to make it sustainable, and for example, just in terms of sponsoring, I am able to get different sponsors for the French audience and for the English
yes.
audience.
Again, it
So
literally pays. It really literally pays. It's a good business, to be inclusive and diverse in your audience and your targets, and as well as like in terms of the people that are writing
yeah,
and doing the work. So kudos again. It's been an absolute pleasure, Sebastian. Seriously.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, listener, all the links to all the things are in your show notes. We got Docusaurus in there. We've got the showcase in there. We've got this week in React.com in there. Just click through to check out what Sebastian is up to. On behalf of Amal, I'm Jerod. Sebastian, this has been a joy. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank
Docusaurus
you.
version 2, y'all. Check it out. It's making moves. That's our
Yeah.
show. We'll talk to you again next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
So, Sebastian, I have one more question. It's a bit of a
Yeah.
hardball. We have a paid membership for our diehard listeners called Changelog Plus Plus, and sometimes we throw bonuses on just for them. And this is kind of a personal question. Maybe do you mind if I ask it, and then we could throw it on to the Plus Plus feed only, kind of a thing. Would
Mhm.
you be down with that? Like you can hear the question and decide to answer it or no. It's not
Yeah.
that hard, but it's personal. You down to give me a shot here? It'll take a minute or two. Are you open?
Yeah, I'm open.
Let's hear the question and then you'll decide. Okay.
Jerod, I have to drop because I have a 2:30, but I'll stay on for the next minute.
Okay. It might not take long. So,
Okay.
and it's still on YouTube, but our YouTube views get like 100, 200, whereas the podcast is thing. How do I phrase this? Okay. So the question is, how closely do you identify with Docusaurus? And the reason why I ask is because you are currently paid to work on it, but if Facebook/Meta decided that they no longer had a budget to continue putting effort into the project,
Mm.
would it be something that you continued on your own? Would you peace out at that point? Etc. Like, how much do you feel like it's your project versus theirs?
Honestly, I'm quite. I really like this project. I didn't think it would be the case in the beginning because I mean, for me, docs was not something very sexy. So I got to learn to like the documentation aspect of the project, and I see that there is a lot of value bringing a great documentation experience, and people really like it. So I feel really that I have an impact on this project. It's a bit crazy that me working on it maybe 3 days a week can have such a huge impact. For example, just recently I heard that maybe there are 200 Docusaurus sites at Microsoft, for example. This is quite even surprising that we are at this stage currently. And I'd really like the project to continue and to help it grow, but at the same time, I have my own personal projects. I have always been quite attracted by the indie hacker side. So this is why I started also this newsletter, which I started to be able to sell more expensive consulting on React.js. So
Right.
working Docusaurus is not exactly was not exactly my plan 3 years ago. My plan was to do audits and consulting for expensive. I mean to earn a living correctly somehow. And so if tomorrow I am not paid to work on Docusaurus, I think I couldn't sustain it unless I find a way to make it sustainable. And there is definitely a way to create a consulting business on top of Docusaurus. And um, this is not something that Meta is pushing too much because they just want to solve their own pain because they have a lot of documentation websites. They don't try to monetize the project. But I've been approached by some venture capitalists that maybe would be interested to invest in the project, or
Mm-hmm.
there is also a company that is interesting to create a consulting offering on Docusaurus, and I think it's lacking because the technical writers are not always Node.js and React.js developers, so sometimes they don't know how to customize their site. So I think there is a possibility to make something sustainable on Docusaurus without Facebook if Facebook decided to abandon the project, which I don't think it would be the case because they have a lot of Docusaurus sites internally and even more externally. For example, there is just React Native is a huge documentation site which is built with Docusaurus, so that would be a bit weird for them to abandon it.
Yeah.
So I try to keep working on it if I can, but at the end of the day, I have to earn a living, so it's not always easy to predict if I would be successful to work on the project on my own terms. And also, the project is under MIT license, but I don't know exactly what this implies. Maybe I can just create a fork and try to monetize it with a cloud or whatever, but.
Yeah,
That
you might
looks like
have to. I was thinking about that because, like, what if they even just said, like, Sebastian, we're not going to work with you any longer. Here's somebody else. We're going to hire them to work on Docusaurus. We're taking it in a different direction. Like, that could be a thing that could happen. And, like, how would you react in such a circumstance? I think you could definitely fork it, I mean, legally and start something that's a fork. They probably have IP claims on the branding and things, the website, etc. You might need a renamed fork ran by the
yeah,
community or
yeah.
something. I mean, these are, they're hypotheticals, but like the changes do happen over time, and I wonder how like tenuous you feel in your relationship to the project, because the more time, the more effort, the more you become the Docusaurus guy, like the
Yeah.
harder that would be to let go of it or to be cut off from it, you know?
I have other projects that are interesting me, so this doesn't afraid me too much because I know I can find an interesting job in no
Yeah.
time if I wanted. Now I have a lot of people that know me from the newsletter, from Twitter, and from being the Docusaurus guy. So
Sure.
there are a lot of other companies, maybe Vercel or Expo or things like that, that are really attractive to me. And I think I could also be an interesting hire for them. So I'm not afraid of losing my job on Docusaurus. And I don't think it will change direction because at Meta they agree that the project is in the right direction, and it's already maybe one of the one of the maybe top 5 open source Meta projects in terms of GitHub stars. So this is really successful and on the right track. And I think what the project needs is more bandwidth to implement ambitious features, which is currently a bit difficult for me alone to do. There are some external contributors that contribute to the project, and maybe there are 1 or 2 quite active team members that contribute to the project apart me.
Mm-hmm.
But this is still not enough, I think, and if Meta were to abandon the project, I think maybe the project will be somehow given maybe to OpenJS Foundation or something like that. Maybe you have seen recently there is a Jest that were given to the OpenJS Foundation because there were somehow some drama about Meta employees not working anymore on Jest, but it was some external contributor only doing this on his part-time, and the project was given to OpenJS Foundation. So maybe it can happen for Docusaurus if Meta doesn't want to invest more in Docusaurus, or maybe it will just move slowly, but the project today is already valuable in its current state, so I think it's not a big deal. You know, there are a lot of people that still use Docusaurus version 1 today, even if it didn't implement any new feature for years. For example, you have Babel and Prettier that are still using Docusaurus 1, and it's not a problem for them. Apparently, they never contacted me to get help to upgrade to version 2. So, you know, if a project works, you don't want to change something that works.
Well said. Thanks for sticking around and answering that question. I think I agree with you. I think you're right on. You honestly thought this through more than I have. Thanks, Sebastian.
Thank you.